Hello and welcome, I'm Chris Hall and this is Hall's Right Back Off the Record. It's great to have you with me once again, and once again we are talking about Doctor Who, as last night there was another new episode of Doctor Who. Oh, you'd think it was a new series or something. Oh, and the episode itself was good. Yay! It's a Dalek episode and it was good. Double yay! There's still a massive clanging stupid moment in it, but we'll talk about that shortly. As an episode as a whole, I enjoyed it. Okay, saying it was great is a bit... he's praising it more than he's actually due, but it was an enjoyable episode. Far and away better than the first episode of this new series. So, there's that. But of course, there is a downside to it being good, which means I don't have as much things to complain about as maybe I did last week, but as a whole it does kind of renew my goodness for the series. It is very heartening to see the series not being terrible as I have seen it in its absolute worst, which it does flirt with the idea of going terrible. In this episode it flirts with the idea of going terrible. So to recount the basic synopsis to the episode, no spoilers in this bit, rest of the video I can't guarantee, but the basic plot line goes like this. It is the future. There are spaceships, there are Daleks in some spaceships. One spaceship gets blown up by a Dalek spaceship, but the Doctor saves someone on that spaceship that was blown up by the Daleks, and pretty much for the entirety of their time in the episode, the person that the Doctor saves spends their time moaning and complaining about just about everything. The Doctor then meets a Dalek who is having an identity crisis. He thinks all Daleks are evil and need to be destroyed. But he's also seen beauty, which means that he's a good guy now. So the Doctor has to examine the Dalek to figure out what's wrong with it, or what's right with it, or whichever. So to do this, the Doctor and Clara are shrunk down to microscopic size and inserted in the Dalek. I don't know why I gave it a hand gesture, but that's pretty much, yeah, they kind of just shoved right in there. And the Doctor has a merry jaunt around the inside of the Dalek. Shenanigans occur, people die, and the episode ends with everyone at home feeling slightly renewed and refreshed that the episode was good, and it was a Dalek episode that wasn't boring, so yay! Okay, enough of the sarcasm and the faint attempts at to sound like a human being and sounding happy. Let us tackle the problem with this episode. Now, like I say, last week's episode for me was crap, if I'm perfectly honest, and I'll be surprised if there is another episode of this series that is as bad as it. It wasn't the worst episode of Doctor Who. Once again, the Twin Dilemma is by far and away the worst story in Doctor Who's history. That is the episode that effectively signalled the end of Doctor Who in its original run. This week's episode was good, but there was a problem with it, and it was only a small problem. It's not like last week where we had so many bad things in it that I could rant and rave about. This week there's only the one, but it's still a big one for me. And the problem comes from a new character. This week we got a new character, yay! And he wasn't terrible, he was good. He was very well written, well performed, and I really look forward to seeing more of him. I cannot remember his proper name, but he's called Mr. Pink because he's a teacher. He's a new teacher at Clara's school. She herself is now a teacher, though I don't remember her. I thought she was an au pair, I thought she was a nanny, but whatever, she's a teacher now. So he is a teacher, she's a teacher, she has a bit of a crush on him, he has a bit of a crush on her as well. And when we're first introduced to him, he's having a training session with the high school's air cadets, though it's during school time, and as far as I'm aware, the air cadets and other such military organisations don't have their sessions during school time, but whatever, I won't linger on that because that's not the stupid moment. The reason he's taken up the air cadet thing is because he himself was a soldier. He's no longer a soldier now, he's an ex-soldier. And I think you can kind of guess what I'm hinting at if you've already seen the episode, but people that haven't, or simply forgotten, the bad moments follow shortly after. So naturally, because he's an ex-soldier and kids these days are thicker than a thick thing on the thickest thing ever, one of the kids asks him if he's ever killed anybody. Now the question itself isn't, well, it is stupid, but it is there for a reason, and the reason is that the exchange between the student and the teacher tells us that the teacher, Mr. Pink, is a troubled character, that he has a history, that he has things that he's trying to get his head around, that he may well not be adapting to the real world that well, but he still has memories from his time in the war. I think it was I read up and I think he served in Afghanistan, though that's never mentioned, and he has memories that are fresh from that, and he's a very troubled character. So the basically exchange goes, "Sir, did you ever kill anybody?" And there's a brief pause, and Mr. Pink looks at him and says, and I can't remember what he says, so I'm paraphrasing it. He says something along the lines of, "I was a soldier, there were other soldiers trying to kill me, and I did what I had to do." Okay, fine. Mature response to an incredibly immature question. The kid then asks him another question. And the kid asks him, "Did you ever kill anybody unintentionally?" To which there's a longer pause. And during this long pause, I think to myself, oh my god, they've finally done it. They've finally done it! Oh my god, we're having a subtle moment in Doctor Who! This entire exchange, though, the kid asking him those ridiculously silly juvenile questions, is what some kids that age do. I remember when I was in high school, that when we had a meeting with some employment people, one of them was a soldier, someone from my class asked them, have any of your friends died? So I know that kids can say these stupid questions, so in itself, it doesn't feel like bad writing. What follows feels like bad writing. But like I say, we have this great long pause, these two long pauses, which immediately speak volumes. The absence of speech and anything of great visual significance, if you will, adds to the character. We know that he's a troubled character. We know that he's got issues. We know that he's got things he's trying to get his head around. Just from those two pauses, particularly the second one. But they ruin it. As soon as the second pause ends, we have a close-up of Mr. Pink's face. And we see a lone tear roll down the side of his face. Not only did you ruin this scene for me, you did it in a way which is so bloody juvenile that the kids in that class could have written better. I mean, really, that exchange between the kid and the teacher was enough. The pauses spoke volumes. We didn't need some kind of visual signification to denote the fact that this guy is struggling to get his head around the things that he's seen, that he doesn't want to talk about it, that it's a very touchy subject to him. We don't need him to be seen crying, for God's sake. We just need those pauses. The perfect way for that exchange to end would have been just to go, right, your homework for this week is da-da-da-da-da, which he does after the teary-eyed moment. I mean, really, you had a great scene, a great moment here, which, yes, the stuff that the kid is saying, asking him if he's ever killed someone, is juvenile, but that's what kids of that age do ask. The exchange, how they tackle that within the show, how they tackle it with the pauses, is great, brilliant. The fact that they have to have him cry. What? Seriously? It was a great moment. You didn't need to show him crying, because the way that he responded to the questions, he was incredibly defensive about it. The long pause between him asking the question and him answering it was enough. You didn't need to have him crying. What does that add, really? Is it for all the stupid people watching it who can't tell that this character is answering questions that he really, really doesn't want to answer? Is it so that those stupid people understand that this guy has a history, that he doesn't want to blurt out, that he's done things that he's not proud of? Do we really need to have him in this horribly put together shot of his face with the tear rolling down his face to signify that? Do we really need that? In this day and age, it's okay, people keep saying that Doctor Who's a kid's show, whatever. But any kid would know by the exchange that this man is talking about something he doesn't want to talk about. There's no one on this planet that wouldn't understand that this man is talking about something he doesn't want to talk about, and it's an emotive subject. There's undiscovered tribes on the Amazon that would be able to tell that this man is talking about something that he doesn't want to talk about, and it's a very emotional subject for him. That we don't need to have anything more to it. Anything more to it would have been overkill. Whether it had been a tear rolling down his face, or it had been that stupid Welsh choir in the background going, oh, this is tragic. Anything, it was perfect, that scene. But they ruin it. They ruin it. For what? Really, for what? What is gained by adding that teary-eyed bit? I don't know. As you could tell, it's a very annoying subject me because I thought that scene was great. And it's only by the fact that that scene was great and the episode itself was good that I don't consider this to be a spectacularly dumb moment. In the same way that I consider the "Don't worry, young one, I've got ample air in my lungs" bit from last week's episode was. I'm just staggered, really, that any grown-up would ever think of putting the tear down the cheek bit in. I mean, really, Stephen Moffat, do you understand how humans communicate here? Are you yourself a Doctor Who alien? It would explain a lot, let's be honest, but still. Okay, moving on, the character, like I say, is very well written and well performed, and apart from that little bit, and it's only a short scene, only about 5 seconds, if that we see the tear rolling down his face. But the sheer derailment that it causes, what I've said just then says everything I have to say about it. Of course, the fact that he is a soldier, and I've looked at the cast notes for the next few episodes, he will be making another appearance, probably as a companion to some degree, kind of like what Rory was with Amy and Matt Smith's Doctor. And the fact that he's a soldier probably will end up causing tension between him and the Doctor, as we learn in the Doctor that the Doctor does not like soldiers because the person that he saves from the exploding ship is a soldier, and at the end of the episode it looks as if she's going to join him as a companion, though he says no because you're a soldier. Okay, then that's either some very terrible writing of the character of the Doctor, or it's Stephen Moffat really, really passing up an opportunity for some good character development of the Doctor by having someone that is effectively his antithesis in their beliefs, or at least in the way that they tackle problems. You know, the Doctor prefers to be more of a pacifist, though the soldiery character pretty much is shoot first, ask questions later. That could be a great dynamic they could work off and explore the Doctor's philosophy around killing things, why specifically he doesn't want to kill stuff. But they're not going to do that because Stephen Moffat wants to set up some horrible moral dilemma for Clara in a future episode between Mr. Pink and the Doctor. That's the whole reason why that exchange has happened, and what will probably happen by the end of the series. Yay! So this week's episode was a Dalek episode, seeing as we've done everything possibly interesting with the Daleks over the past 50 years. There's really very little else you can do with them which would be thematically interesting, so let us do something wacky and quirky. No doubt the writers of this episode said, let us go inside a Dalek and see how Daleks work, which is what this episode is. It's Into the Dalek. The Doctor and his companion get shrunk down to microscopic size and inserted into the Dalek, and they have a gadabout, and things are done and things are said. And they make reference at the fact that this episode this episode's idea isn't original in the slightest, and the fact that he's effectively the Incredible Voyage, or whatever that sci-fi movie is called. The actual construct episode, fine. It doesn't explore anything new about the Daleks, but whatever. It was never going to do so. The idea of a good Dalek, or whatever constitutes good... Hang on a minute. No, really, they've covered that, haven't they? When they had the Daleks in Manhattan episode. When the Dalek, Seth, or whatever his name is, absorbed some humanity and became human-y or something. I thought we've already had that. Whatever. Suddenly that came out of nowhere. I hadn't remembered that, but whatever. He's a good Dalek, this one, because he's still a proper Dalek. He's not walking about in a cheap suit. There's Dalek antibodies in this episode, which may or may not be merchandising in time for Christmas. The multicoloured Daleks that we saw towards the start of Matt Smith's reign of the Doctor Who seemingly have vanished from all existence. I don't know whether they were all killed off or something, or what, I honestly don't remember. Chances are the reason why they're not in it anymore because the design was ridiculous, and obviously it was way too expensive to change model or something. That's about it. Dalek episodes go, it's alright. So this is the first episode in which the Doctor gets to act like the Doctor. This isn't a regeneration episode. We get to see Peter Capaldi's Doctor in full swing, and what we get is a Doctor that is very reminiscent of William Hartnell's Doctor, someone who is willing to leave people behind, to not give away any spoilers. That's a whole interesting. He does the "Am I a good man" bit that's been touted about in the trailers for God only knows how long, from those ridiculously, stupidly short trailers that we had. There's not really else to say about the Doctor himself, because he was the Doctor. He didn't do anything new or different. He still hates the Daleks. He still hates the Daleks with a passion that burns brighter than 1,000 suns. Clara, once again, was fantastic. And I know for some people that seems like that doesn't seem like a big thing, but for me it is. I never liked Clara's character. I always thought she was annoying as hell. And I always hated the way that in modern Doctor Who, the companions at some point or another seem to become some kind of almighty space god, or have some kind of wibbly wobbly moment with space and time. With Clara, she had that because she's the impossible girl, or whatever. And seeing as that entire historic arc has now been sorted, she is great. Her performance once again is good. I really like the banter between... I hate the word banter, but I really like the exchanges between the Doctor and Clara. They're funny. It shows that there is still some compassion between the two of them, even if Clara is still trying to get her head around the regeneration thing. You can tell that this is going to be a theme for this series, and for many people watching at home, they're probably still getting their head around the fact that it is Peter Capaldi doing this and not some young buck straight out of RADA or something. In the episode, the performances between those two was great. Mr. Pink, great. I really want to see more of him. I've already said that, but still, I really want to see more of Mr. Pink. We will see more of Mr. Pink, which is good. No one else really did anything particularly good. No, until the last that played the soldier that I don't remember the name of, whom the Doctor saved, was good. She was angry at everything, and I kind of wish that she did become a companion, because once again, the idea of the Doctor sharing a TARDIS with someone who he effectively hates because of their profession is good. It's one of those things that the Doctor could, I don't know, see differently, or at least change the way that the companion sees the world, because whenever the companions go with the Doctor, they change in some way, either physically or mentally. So to have a character who is pretty much shoot first, ask questions later, travel with someone who's a pacifist itself would be an interesting little to and fro. But of course, as Stephen Moffat wants to evidently save the Doctor travelling with a soldier thing for Mr. Pink and create the moral dilemmas from that. We'll end up getting that eventually. But whatever. Knowing how these things work, probably the last that played the soldier woman will no doubt be cast as a future companion at some point, seeing as almost every other character thus far, almost every other companion that we've had has featured in an episode of Doctor at some point. Freema Angema, and I believe her name is, who played Martha, she was in the episode which the Cybermen went through the dimensional thing and she got killed off, and then she got instated as the next companion. And Kieran Gillen, who plays Amy, was one of the druidy looking people in the Pompeii episode, which incidentally is the episode in which we first saw Peter Capaldi in. And is there anyone else? I don't think that Jenny Coleman, who plays Clara, has actually featured in Doctor at some point or another. Know that Catherine Tate was in that Christmas special, and for whatever reason they decided to have her on as a companion full time. In my spectrum of out of all the new companions, I think that Catherine Tate's character is probably the worst companion. Though with that said, they've all been pretty alright. Apart from maybe Rose Tyler, but I think it's between those two for me who's the worst. I know that's going to piss off some people because some people really like Rose Tyler and David Tennant. Oh my god. You thought you'd offended their god or something. Good grief. But, you know what? Overall, a very, very, very good episode. Well, not very, very. It was good. It was alright. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't naff. It was interesting. It kept my interest throughout, which the previous episode didn't do. That might be down to its length. But still, very enjoyable episode. I look forward to next week's episode, even though it looks for all the world as if it's going to be a filler episode. And I think it's a guest written one, so that kind of confirms that it will be. I know when I did the first off the record about Doctor Who that I mentioned that the regeneration episodes, generally speaking, mean nothing for the rest of the series. Well, guest written episodes, I'm going to say that a third time so I actually remember what I'm going to say. Guest written episodes, generally speaking, have very, very, very little context and impact on the rest of the series. But they kind of get away with it because they have some kind of very cack-handed, retro-fitted alignment into it. Like in the episode where we had the mermaids and the pirates, and then the pirates went off in a spaceship. Then at the end of that series, they appeared again in the spaceship to help the Doctor, and none of the actors said anything because that would mean they'd actually have to pay them. Good grief. But still, Robin Hood. He doesn't exist, he's not a historical figure, but he's in Doctor Who. In fact, they make reference to that in the trailer, so maybe he's a robot or an alien or something. We'll soon find out. There's a bunch of robotic knights who look terribly designed. Yay. Is there anything else that springs to mind that needs to be talked about in regards to all this? No, can't think of anything else. So, yeah, roll on next week. Goodbye.